There is a part of you that has been running your life from the shadows, and you have never once introduced yourself to it. You've made decisions you couldn't explain. You've felt emotions that seem to come from nowhere. You've been drawn to certain people, certain situations, certain patterns, over and over again. And no matter how hard you tried to think your way out, you ended up right back where you started. Carl Jung had a name for this invisible force. He called it the shadow. And today we are going to talk about one of its most misunderstood and most powerful dimensions, the feminine shadow. Now, before we go any further, I want to tell you about one specific sign, sign number 3 on our list today, because when I first understood it, it completely changed how I saw myself, my relationships, and my entire emotional history. We're going to get to that. But first, I need you to understand something that most people completely miss when they hear the word shadow. Stay with me, because by the end of this video, you are going to look at your own behavior differently, permanently. Let's begin. Carl Jung believed that the human psyche is not one thing. It is many things living under the same roof. There is the part of you that you show the world, your persona, the mask. There is the conscious self, the ego, the part that says, "I am this kind of person." And then there is everything else. Everything you were taught to suppress. Everything that was shamed out of you. Everything that didn't fit the image of who you were supposed to be. That rejected collection, Jung called it the shadow. Now here is where it gets important. Jung also identified 2 archetypal energies that exist within every human being, regardless of their biological sex. He called them the animus, the masculine principle, and the anima, the feminine principle. These are not about gender. These are about qualities, receptivity, intuition, emotion, creativity, vulnerability, cyclical thinking, depth. These are feminine energies. And in a culture that has historically rewarded logic, control, productivity, and emotional suppression, the feminine, in both men and women, becomes one of the most heavily repressed parts of the self. Which means for most people, the feminine lives almost entirely in the shadow. And a shadow does not disappear just because you refuse to look at it. It gets stronger. It finds ways to express itself that you cannot control and often cannot even recognize as coming from you. That is exactly what these 5 signs reveal. Sign number 1. You feel an irrational and almost violent discomfort around highly emotional people. You know the type. Someone starts crying in a conversation and you feel something close to panic, or irritation, or a sudden urge to fix the problem as fast as possible so the emotion goes away. Someone expresses vulnerability, and instead of feeling compassion, you feel contempt, or impatience, or you simply shut down. Jung's concept of projection tells us something very specific here. We do not react to the outer world neutrally. We react most intensely to the things that exist within us that we have not yet accepted. When you find another person's emotional expression unbearable, the question is never really about them. The question is always, what is it inside you that you cannot stand to feel? The feminine shadow speaks in the language of emotion, and when emotion in another person triggers a disproportionate reaction in you, anger, dismissal, withdrawal, mockery, that is the shadow projecting outward. You are not seeing their weakness. You are seeing your own buried sensitivity, and you are attacking it. This is one of the most common signs in people who were raised in environments where emotional expression was punished or ignored. The lesson was learned early: to feel is to be weak. And so the capacity for feeling was locked away. But locked away does not mean gone. Sign number 2. Your creativity feels blocked, and you don't know why. This one surprises people. Creativity is deeply connected to the feminine principle, the ability to receive inspiration, to sit with uncertainty, to allow something to emerge from the unknown without forcing it. This is feminine energy in its purest form. The masculine principle executes. The feminine principle generates. When the feminine shadow is suppressed, creativity dries up. You may sit in front of a blank page and feel nothing. Or you may have brilliant ideas that never become anything because you get rigidly attached to how things should be done. And the moment the creative process asks you to let go of control, you freeze. People who live entirely in the masculine principle, in drive, output, logic, and control, often describe feeling strangely empty despite being very productive. They accomplish a great deal, but none of it feels meaningful. That emptiness is the feminine shadow knocking on the door. It is the part of you that needs to dream, to wander, to make something without a purpose, to feel before you think. If you have ever said the words, "I'm just not a creative person," that is worth examining. Creativity is not a talent. It is a permission. And the feminine shadow holds that permission hostage until you are willing to face it. Sign number 3. And this is the one I mentioned at the beginning, so pay close attention. You are drawn to certain types of people repeatedly, and those relationships always end the same way. Jung called this the phenomenon of the projected anima or animus. Here is what it means in plain language. Whatever you have suppressed inside yourself, you will seek in the outer world. If your feminine qualities, depth, vulnerability, intuition, emotional expressiveness, have been exiled into your shadow, you will find yourself powerfully attracted to people who embody those qualities. At first, the attraction feels like love. It feels like recognition. It feels like this person completes you. And in a way, that feeling is real, because they are carrying the part of you that you have not yet reclaimed. But here is what happens. Because you have not integrated these qualities within yourself, you are essentially placing the entire weight of your inner world onto another person. You expect them to make you feel alive, to make you feel whole, to give you access to emotions and depth that you have cut yourself off from. And that is a burden no human being can carry for another. The relationship becomes consuming, then suffocating, then painful. The very qualities that drew you to this person start to feel threatening or overwhelming, and eventually the relationship ends, and you find yourself drawn to the exact same type of person again. This cycle does not end by finding a better partner. It ends by doing the inner work. By meeting the feminine within yourself, the intuition, the feeling, the depth, and learning to carry it yourself. That is what Jung meant when he said that what you do not make conscious will appear in your life as fate. Sign number 4. You are chronically disconnected from your body. The body is feminine in its nature. It is cyclical. It is sensory. It is present. It does not operate on schedules and deadlines and quarterly targets. It breathes. It feels. It aches. It hungers. It tells you things that your rational mind does not want to hear.
When the feminine shadow is strong, there is often a radical split between the mind and the body. You may live entirely in your head. You may have difficulty recognizing your own physical sensations. You may override hunger, exhaustion, pain, and stress with sheer willpower, and call that discipline, when it is actually dissociation.
Many people discover, through therapy or bodywork, that they have been living above the neck for most of their lives. The body, for them, is almost a stranger. And this is not accidental. The body holds memory. The body holds feeling. And if feeling was not safe to experience, the body becomes a place to avoid. The feminine shadow uses the body as one of its loudest voices. Unexplained physical symptoms, chronic tension, a nervous system that is perpetually dysregulated. These are not random. They are communications from the part of you that you have refused to listen to in any other way. Reconnecting with the body, through movement, through stillness, through learning to feel sensation without immediately analyzing it, is one of the most direct pathways into shadow work. Because the body does not lie, it cannot perform, it simply is. Sign number 5. You have a complicated and often hostile relationship with the concept of receiving. You can give endlessly. You give help, time, advice, effort, energy. You are reliable. You are useful. You are the one people call. But when someone tries to give something to you, a compliment, a gesture of care, a moment of genuine support, something in you resists. You minimize it. You deflect it. You say, "Oh, it's nothing," when someone praises you. You feel uncomfortable when you are the one being taken care of. In Jungian terms, giving is active, directive, and outward moving. That is the masculine principle. Receiving is open, still, and inward moving. That is the feminine principle. And if the feminine has been suppressed in your psyche, receiving will feel dangerous, childlike, embarrassing, weak. This pattern is especially common in people who took on adult responsibilities very early in life, who learned that their value was entirely conditional on what they could do and produce, who were never simply loved for existing. The child who never received learns that receiving is not safe. The adult version of that child becomes someone who is exhausted by constant giving, but cannot stop, because stopping means being still, and being still means feeling, and feeling was never safe. The feminine shadow in this case is asking you to allow yourself to be held, to receive without immediately calculating the debt, to exist without justifying your existence through output. That is not weakness. That is one of the most advanced and difficult forms of inner work there is. So here is where we arrive. 5 signs. Discomfort with emotion. Creative blockage. Repeating relationship patterns. Disconnection from the body. Difficulty receiving. Each one a signal. Each one a doorway. Jung did not teach shadow work as a punishment or as proof that something is wrong with you. He taught it as the path toward what he called individuation, the process of becoming a whole, integrated human being. Not perfect, whole. Not without conflict, integrated. The feminine shadow is not your enemy. It is the most alive part of you, waiting behind a door you were told never to open. The first step is always the same. Notice, without judgment, without immediately trying to fix. Just notice. What in this video made you feel something? What made you uncomfortable? What made you think of a specific person or a specific memory? That reaction, whatever it was, is worth sitting with, because that is where your shadow lives. And that is exactly where your growth begins. If this video opens something for you, I want you to do two things. First, subscribe to this channel, because we go deep here. We talk about the psychology that actually explains human behavior. Not surface-level tips, but the real inner architecture of how people think, feel, and change. You do not want to miss what's coming next. Second, go to the comments right now and tell me, which of these 5 signs hit closest to home for you? You don't have to explain. You can just write the number. Because sometimes just naming it is the beginning of everything. I'll see you in the next one.